Hello and welcome to Dub at the Cup, KEEPUP's daily podcast for all things Women's World Cup. My name is Taryn, Heddo. Joining me, Pellizzeri as always, and also very special guest, A-League superstar, Grace Maher. Grace, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, no better place to start, Teo, than USA 0, Portugal 0. Portugal coming so close, within a whisker of knocking the champions out of the Women's World Cup. What a game, and were you surprised by US being quite insipid, to be honest?
Well, I mean, who would have thought that a 0-0 draw would give us one of the most fascinating games of the tournament, nearly one of the biggest upsets in World Cup history. Grace, Portugal came so close. They hit the post in stoppage time. The game finished scoreless. Portugal needed to win. The USA only needed a draw. What do you think wasn't working for the Americans in this game?
Yeah, uninspiring performance, definitely. Centimetres off, and it was off the back of, the US knew they only needed a draw. I know they didn't know how many goals the Netherlands had scored, but it was confusing what their game plan was. They were trying to go for it because they knew that they should be beating Portugal, but at the same time they weren't secure in the back and nearly slipped right at the end. And yeah, I just think the US haven't been able to. Well, they don't have the players that they used to have, the ruthlessness. They've got a younger group and they're still trying to force the same things and long balls into the box for Lynn Williams, and she's probably not as clinical as her predecessors. So, yeah, just a lot of things that aren't working for them.
Would you say the USA have played the way they always play? They just don't have as fast and as strong and as skillful players as they previously did?
I think, they're missing someone like Tobin Heath. They're missing Kristen Press as well. These players that actually, while they were fast, physical, they're very technical, and they can beat a player one-on-one. So they get past the first defender, so their crosses are actually dangerous. I'm seeing, Sophia Smith's really good at running in off behind players, and Alex Morgan, but Trinity Rodman and Lynn Williams were struggling to get past that first defender. The crosses weren't dangerous, and yeah, it just felt very lackluster.
Taryn, call it. Are the United States going to do the three-peat? Are they going to defend their World Cup?
Well, 2019 they looked very shaky, didn't they? And they went ahead and did it anyway. So, look, I think that the problem with the US, and I think a weakness that's been exposed both in this game and the game against the Netherlands, is they're very shaky out of possession. It's almost like the anti-Australia in a lot of ways, the anti-Korea Republic that we've spoken about a little bit as well. They are so used to teams just sitting off, just letting them have possession, letting them create and do what they want. They're so used to being the team that's having to break down the low block that I think when they face an opposition who have more possession than them, who are willing to take risks on the ball and be technical in midfield, they really, really struggle. They don't know how to respond. It's an unfamiliar position for the United States. And Sweden, who are their likely opponents in the next round, of course, would do well to take note of that.
Your thoughts, Grace? Are we watching the end of an era here for the United States? I mean, normally teams build into a tournament. If anything, they're getting worse.
Yeah, and I think we spoke about 2027 perhaps being there. They've got that time to rebuild, and that might be their opportunity. I don't see them now with Rose Lavelle out for the next game as well, having that cutting edge. Alex Morgan hasn't been able to. She's made runs in behind, but her shots have been quite poor. And I don't see them. Sweden, it is notorious. It will be an interesting matchup, but if they progress to the quarters, I don't see them going further.
Taryn, Rose Lavelle suspended. Does Megan Rapinoe start? You have been the legend killer on this podcast. Megan Rapinoe, does she get another chance, at least as a starter, or is it someone else that you'd rather see come in for the United States?
I don't see how she starts. To be really honest, I mean, we know what she can do in big moments. She's in this squad as a big moments player. She's in this squad, 80th minute, set piece, that sort of player. I don't think she should start. Whether she will start or not is a different matter. I think Savannah DeMello's been pretty good. Of course, she got her first cap for the US in game one. So she's probably the replacement. Rose Lavelle is a huge, huge loss, though, for the United States. That creativity, that cutting edge, they'll really miss that without her.
So I guess the other question is, I was joking with a few friends during the game, could the USA sack Vlatko Andonovski mid-tournament? Would they be allowed to hire Bev Priestman or a different coach and let her coach the knockouts? I mean, he is copying it. You put Vlatko into Twitter and it is just, it's what you would expect from United States fans. They have this American exceptionalism. They think they're going to win every game they play. Let's be honest, they should win every game they play with the number of college players they graduate every year. Grace, What's it going to... I mean, we've been quite negative about the United States. Are there any positives they can cling on to other than mentality and the fact that they've been there before and they do have that winning habit if they can get a few lucky breaks and get something going?
Well, I think that's exactly what they have. And that's actually quite a lot in tournaments, football. You know, you saw back in the 2014 World Cup, I think with England men, they didn't score one goal from open play and made it all the way through with set pieces. They've got the experience. They know now it's knockout football. They've got that mentality. You've seen them walking out on the fields with those suits. Like no other team in the league, in the competition has been, I don't know, had that sort of arrogance about them, which can take teams quite far in tournaments. Does that luck run out? Perhaps.
The other team in the group, Taryn, the Netherlands, they will top the group. At the moment, they're going to play either Italy or South Africa, maybe Sweden, if we get an extraordinary set of results in that group tomorrow. But what did you make of that? Vietnam, I think they'd been clinging on. You know, they'd been fortunate to only concede 3 against America. They'd been very fortunate to only concede 2 against Portugal. And the damn wall broke here. And really, it was sub-training level intensity by the second half.
It was, and the Netherlands, they went out there, they knew what they wanted to do. Coach Andries Jonker was very clear before the game. They did not want to play Sweden in the round of 16. They knew that they had to score a lot of goals against Vietnam in case the US won against Portugal. So they went out there and they did that. The first 4 goals were scored, I think, within the first 25 minutes of the game. The Dutch players were running into the net, grabbing the ball out just to score more, as if it was the 90th minute and they needed a winner. So, you know, they were very clear. Once they got their 4 goals, though, they knew, I think they had word that the US-Portugal game was still scoreless, and definitely the intensity petered out as it went on.
Grace, anyone from the Netherlands that's impressed you? I mean, Esma Brooks has been getting a lot of headlines and sort of chat in this tournament as one of the breakout players, but given they're such a technical side, who do you like in that team and who's caught your eye?
It's hard. I think, obviously, when they came into the tournament with the losses of Maher, and there was that calling for who's going to step up, who's going to be their big game player. While I paid my attention on the US game, I can't go past Danielle Vanderdonk. She's really creative, but also I think she's the heart of the team, and she's just fills in where they need and has that ability to be able to score if she needs to, like she did today, but also defensively hold out. A bit of the glue for the Netherlands.
Taryn, can we read anything into Australia topping their group without their biggest star? Also the Netherlands topping their group without their biggest star, Vivianne Miedema. Are we seeing some sort of collective revival of teams rallying in the absence of their talismanic leaders?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because I think one of the themes that I wanted to talk about today is that idea of expectation, where when you're expected to win versus being the underdog. And Grace, I wanted to ask you about this because I think for Canada in particular, it's a very topical conversation because they've gone from always being underdogs to winning the gold medal and suddenly being expected to win. We've seen a similar shift with the Netherlands. They won the 2017 Euros, but they certainly weren't expected to make the final of the World Cup in 2019. They did so, they were underdogs, and now they've sort of gone through a transition of shaky results. Now they're expected to do well, and they've gotten through that transition. Australia similarly. Think 2017, suddenly we've had this breakout year and results didn't go the way that people expected. When we were underdogs against Canada, we came through. So Grace, I guess that backs against the wall mentality as a player, how much do you feel that, and how much do you think that impacts the way that you play?
Yeah, I think first off you have to acknowledge the culture within teams and within the country. So for example, Australia, regardless of the sport, we are a country that we love to have our backs against the wall and prove people wrong. And we have seen some incredible sporting moments, and that the Matildas are no different. So I'm Australian. I've grown up in that culture too. I haven't experienced many other cultures from a young age. So that is instilled in us. And I think what you saw last night as the Matildas stepped out into that field was that never say die attitude that you can speak about a lot, but that's what it was, and that's actually what we saw. Canada struggled a little bit individually, and that collectively then became a problem, but all credit to the Matildas because they were able to not let VAR decisions throw them. They were kept on going, they kept on trying to attack. They physically dominated, they were up for it, they were getting the crowd riled up, and I just think that meant that Ellie Steph had their best games of the tournament, and were just all over Canada, and then in the midfield as well. So yeah, it's having your backs against the wall can be a real blessing, I guess, if you're not expected to make it. But at the same time, it means that, if you don't, it shouldn't go unpunished as well. Like, there's still a lot of talking points.
We spoke a lot last night about Australia good. We didn't speak very much about Canada going out. Taryn, can a lot of it be put down to how well the Matildas played, that Canada was so poor? Or are there some things that Canada will walk away saying, no, we didn't meet our standards. It wasn't just being outplayed. It's that we let Australia do some things that made us look really vulnerable and really weak.
Oh, it's a bit of both, isn't it? I mean, you look at that, particularly the corner, the Hayley Rasso's second goal. I mean, that was shambolic defending, to be honest. And, you know, I think the Canadian players knew that. Bev Priestman in her press conference after the game admitted that it was far from their best performance. But in saying that, Australia did play much better, and there was that subtle tactical shift that Canada weren't able to deal with at all. Quinn and Julia Grosso in midfield both had absolute mares, to be honest.
It's funny because I thought Quinn won possession back quite a lot, but no one was presenting for the ball. So the next pass, Grosso's nowhere, Fleming's absent, Sinclair's hiding, and all the work Quinn did to win possession back came too little because there was literally no one to pass to. So you're hitting a diagonal to Leon or Heidemann and just hoping for the best.
Well, the issue that Quinn ran into, I thought, and it comes with that subtle tactical shift, was the fact that Emily Van Egmond and Mary Fowler are both 10s. When I first saw the team sheet and I saw that it was a 4-4-2, I was very apprehensive because I thought neither of these players should be playing on the shoulder of the last defender. I don't quite know how this is going to work, but how it ended up working was out of possession. We were actually in a 4-2-4. So previously we've been in a 4-4-2 out of possession where it's been in previous games Caitlin Ford plus Van Egmond or Fowler pushing in the press. This time it was a 4-2-4 with Van Egmond and Fowler sort of dropping off a little bit. And I think what that meant is even if Quinn was doing their job and was successfully winning the ball, they didn't have options because they were trying to deal essentially with two players. And then if a centre-back steps up, you can then play the diagonal in behind to your Hayley Raso, to your Caitlin Ford, and I don't think Canada had an answer to that. Grace, I did want to ask you about that as someone who's played in midfield and in defence. I mean, how do you deal with something like that as a player?
Yeah, I think in situations, I actually remember even when I was, in camps with the national team as a teenager, and we spoke a lot about the teams that we come up against that play a two up top and the importance of the six. And I think when you look at Buchanan and Gills as centre backs, they are strong, physical, that can win on one-on-one challenges. Is Mary Fowler and Emily Van Egmond superior in the air? No. So for me, how I would have dealt with it is I would have allowed Buchanan and Gills to be man for man with Quinn screening. So they're not going to receive it at their feet where they are at their strongest. Then that allows the left and right fullbacks, because they're man for man, to tuck in a little bit to eliminate that threat of Rasso and Caitlin Ford in behind, allow them at their feet, which I argue would say for Caitlin possibly a little bit better, but Rasso is better in behind, and then deal with the ball in front of them instead of over the top. How
surprised were you that Bev Priestman did not sort of sound the alarm and make a change to get Ashley Lawrence away from Hayley Raso? I mean, Real Madrid's Hayley Raso, I tell you what, didn't she look like Real Madrid's Hayley Raso out there on that wing? I was shocked at what a mismatch this became. I almost hope Ashley Lawrence comes out and says, I was injured. I have every injury under the sun. Because it was such a mismatch in Australia. Credit to them for exploiting it. But why didn't Canada act? Why didn't they do something about it?
I think that she was, and it's been not just this game, but the last game, she's been trying to push Lawrence to play the full 90s, and they've been taking off the younger fullback, and she arguably is just as quick, so she could deal with Hayley Rasso's pace. I couldn't believe in the second half when they came out and I was trying to work out all the subs Canada made, because I didn't see Lawrence at left back. I thought she's off, and then I saw
that's the hive mind. I assumed exactly the same thing, only to see her pop up at right back on the other side of the pitch.
There was moments where maybe she was quick if the ball was just a foot race, but she was also so poor on the ball. And you actually, what we talk about playing as the underdogs, Australia were comfortable to sit, and because Canada were not playing their best, it played straight into our strengths of a counter-attack. The amount of the balls that were handed to us So we weren't even that in incredible positions, but then we were handed the ball with no defender in front of us, and off we went.
Taryn, Canada's the defending gold medalist at the Olympics. I assume Bev Priestman will keep the job and get to defend the Olympic crown, but what do they need to change in order to return to the top table? Because reputations can be destroyed with a game like that, and maybe it's lucky for Canada that it was at 3 a.m. in the morning for them.
Well, again, I really do think so much of it is mentality. At the Olympics, they played their finals in front of no crowds. Let's remember the 3 knockout games that they played at the Olympics. Penalties, 1-0 penalty against the US, and then scoreless penalties.
And extremely lucky,
extremely
lucky to beat Sweden in that final.
Very, very much so. So, you know, the World Cup's a completely different kettle of fish. They've got the monkey off their back now. They're no longer the bridesmaids to the US every time.
Yeah.
They're no longer, you know, B-grade US. They've got the gold medal around their neck, and there's expectations that come with that. And I don't think in the next major tournament after that gold medal they've been able to cope with those expectations at all.
Well, you just also, one of the things about the Olympic, which is a really interesting tournament, is 3 European teams qualify. And so that's half your competition knocked out. So, and there are a lot weaker nations that come. It's a completely different tournament, like you said, in format. And yeah, that's probably why they're able to get success. World Cup is your ultimate football success, and they've gone out early. Given
that the United States survived just against Portugal, and Norway were able to finally come good and get out of their group, is Canada undisputed the biggest disappointment of the tournament, or is there anyone that if they went to go out in the round of 16, in context of expectation, that would still be a bigger disappointment than Canada bombing out now?
That's a good question. Possibly that's been the biggest. I had them topping the group. I was so impressed with Nigeria, and obviously the 3 points they picked up against us was crucial. But I can't think of anyone. There's been some closer moments, but result-wise, that's Canada.
Now, if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your pods, because Taryn and I will be back for the nightcap after the 9 p.m. kickoffs, and we will be talking about who Australia will face in the round of 16. So we're not going to speculate about that now with you, Grace, because podcast listeners, that's where you can hear that chat. We need to talk about a game that didn't make it onto that day's dub at the Cup because we had recorded in between Games 2 and Game 3. Germany going down to Colombia. What a result. You are the oracle. Before the tournament, you said Linda Caicedo was going to potentially win the golden ball. And at this point in time, I need to ask you for some lotto numbers. Yeah. Grace Maher, what did you know? Tell us more of what you know, please.
Well, first off, I can't take too much credit. My partner, he's Colombian, and he's been telling me about Linda Caicedo when she was 16 years old, saying someone from the A-League needs to sign this girl and bring her over because she is a star. And you wait on it, and Real Madrid swoop in. So
Real Madrid's Linda Caicedo.
That's hard to compete with now. But look, when I think South America as a region is really undervalued and not also appreciated as much as it should be. These players come from the streets. They're ballers. They are incredible. They play for their country, for their heart. There is so much passion. Football is football. Football is life. And while we all know Brazil, perhaps because the men are so historic and successful, the women in Brazil have carried that through, and now you're starting to see a lot of South American countries close the gap. A lot of the Colombian players are now playing in the Spanish league, in the top league, and just like the Haitians are in the French league, it elevates you. You're in professional environments. You're getting year-round football, and they've got an added a style and flair of, all they need. A draw is an incredible result against Germany, and they're trying to go for the win. They're trying to make plays in midfield, and they're trying to play out from the back because they're fearless, and that's who they are. And I think that goal was a result of them the second goal was a result of them not stopping and playing true to who they were, and it worked out. That
creativity, that expressionism, that lack of fear, it's something you've talked about, Taryn, that both Brazil and Colombia have. Now that they've got this massive win under their belt, though, is that a tap that gets turned off? Do they start to clench up and get nervous under the weight of expectation? Or is this a team that will continue to sing the way that they have through the rest of the tournament?
that's going to come down to the coach, and I don't know a lot about the coach. I'm starting to learn.
Should the coach even return to the technical area? I mean, they've got the interim, the assistant there in the technical area filling in for him while he's been serving his touchline ban.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, he should stay where he is,
yeah,
right?
If he's got his bet. But no, I think as much as it's whoever's on the touchline, so much work goes in behind the scenes and right before up, on the team bus before they get into the stadium. So it's really interesting. It's going to be a fantastic game to watch because obviously Morocco have gotten these 3 points that has given them this hope that if they can get certain results go their way, they're through, and that would be historical as well. So I hope, and I think I know that, and I trust my gut that the Colombians will come out to play and they will not fluster if they go 1-0 down trying to do that. They are I cannot highly rate Ramirez more. That she was so impressive in that first game, but they've got this striker who is huge. She's quick, she's physical, she can hold a ball up, she can turn and run herself. So if they need to tactically drop back like they did against Germany, they've got someone who can score by herself too. So then they've got Linda Caicedo. Their little number 10 was fantastic in the last 10 minutes of that game against Germany, making them look like fools. Pop, I thought she was about to punch someone. It was, so it was, it's fantastic to see, and they've become Australia's second team.
Well, I was going to say, I went to Colombia versus Korea, and I've been saying on Dub at the Cup, if you could get a ticket to Colombia versus Germany, go. Everyone's going to get on the bandwagon of this team. Every Colombian in Australia, plus all the ones that travelled here, are already going to their games. The noise is incredible.
Yeah.
It blows you away when you're in the stadium. And now that they're going to get adopted, as you say, as Australia's second favourite team, can they go all the way? Can they actually win this World Cup?
That is a lot. There is momentum in tournaments that are incredible, but they've just beaten the second best nation in the world. Do you see a team who is so inexperienced in World Cup and major tournaments go all the way? I don't believe so, but I think what this sets up is a foundation for this team to be taken seriously every tournament from there, the players growing, and 2027, look out.
Taryn, how important is this for the global game, that it's no longer dominated by just America, by some of the very top European teams that now, not just Brazil in South America, because I think they'd won the South American Championship since time immemorial. Now we actually have other South American teams stepping up too. How important is this? Because I think it really puts all the 32-team criticism to bed. It's the right number for now.
Absolutely, and look, it's so important for the global game. The teams that we've seen perform well is so important. I mean, let's all be honest. The US has dominated world football, not because Americans come out of the womb magically more talented at football than anyone else. That's a nonsense. They dominate because of investment, because of that college system, because of the training and the facilities and everything else that they have. If that's evened out across the world, we're going to see better football, we're going to see more competitive football, and the whole world is going to rise because of that.
And the one thing that I think a lot of the South American nations, some European nations, and even African nations have, then, if they're getting that investment, they have a style, a unique upbringing that the Americans, Australians don't have, and it's that ability to play on any surface, in any situation. They can play, and they can keep playing until it comes off. And I think, so while these teams have been so dominant with infrastructure and systems in place, if the others can get that, then USA might lose their top spot.
And you know what? If they get rolled by Morocco, we can't lose, because that's a good story too. All right, let's move on. And Grace, while we've got you, let's predict tomorrow's games. Again, for those of you watching on YouTube, stay with us on the podcast, because that's where we will wrap the late games. All right, 5 p.m. in Wellington, South Africa versus Italy. Italy only needs a draw to get through to the round of 16. South Africa has to win, but I think South Africa's in much better form here. I think they will get the win. Grace, what do you reckon? I'm
going as quite a scrappy 1-0 win to Italy.
Taryn?
I'm saying Italy doing Italy, a scoreless draw.
Wow, okay, well, don't forget, South Africa have scored first in every game. I think they will score first here, but this time they will hold on to the win. Sacrilege for me to say that as a half Italian, I know. At the same time, Argentina will play Sweden. How many goals for Amanda Ilsted in her battle to win the Golden Boot from centre back? She's been taken over by Miyazawa from the Netherlands, from Japan, and then the Netherlands had a bunch of players that are all now starting to sniff around that Golden Boot. So How does Sweden go? Do Argentina stand any chance of an upset here?
No, I don't think they do. I've watched their games, and while they've got some good players, I don't think they're going to be able to physically cope with Sweden's attack. The tall blondes, there's so many of them that just run with pace, and they're incredible on the ball. So I think I'm going 3-0 Sweden.
So, Taryn, will we have United States versus Sweden in the round of 16 due to Sweden at least getting a draw here?
I strongly suspect so. 3-0 to the tall girlies.
Okay, and then at 8 p.m, right here in Melbourne, Jamaica versus Brazil at Melbourne Rectangular. Jamaica in the box seat, knowing a draw gets them through. Bunny Shaw back from suspension, not Bunny Colvin, as Pakua said on the podcast a couple of days ago. Sorry, Pakua. But Jamaica versus Brazil. Look, I think Brazil will win. They'll have the crowd, and I suspect that will help lift them. I mean, everyone on the panel disagreed with me, but I actually thought they were the better team against France and quite unlucky to lose. So I think they'll bounce back with a win, and they will take care of business. Grace, what do you reckon?
Yeah, my heart wants Jamaica to win because Colombia struggle a lot against Brazil because of it's just like US and Canada. But I do think Brazil will hold on at the very least for a 1-1 draw.
Taryn?
Yeah, I think Brazil will do the business, but I think there's going to be a lot of goals in it.
And in Sydney, has France shaken off the cobwebs? Do they take care of Panama here? Any chance of a banana skin? Taryn?
I think they take care of Panama, but that doesn't mean that there's no chance of a banana skin. We might see a 1-0 or a 2-0 nervy result, but I still think France will get it done.
Grace, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if they get a goal early, floodgates will open. If not, maybe a 1 or 2-0.
Fascinating day of football coming up. All right, for those of you watching on YouTube, we're going to say goodbye to Grace Maher, but subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. That's where Taryn and I will be talking about the late games, Denmark, Haiti, England, and Australia, finding out the result, maybe China. But Grace Maher, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I think we will hear from you again before the tournament is out on Dove at the Cup. So thank you once again for your insights. And Taryn, where can people find out more about KEEPUP's World Cup coverage?
Well, make sure you follow KEEPUP on all of your social media platforms, whether you prefer Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, any of those places, we are there. And of course, as Teo said earlier, make sure you follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. This has been Dub at the Cup for now. Until the late edition, my name is Taryn Heddo. Thank you so much for listening.